Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Derek here. I read an article called The Hidden Costs of Organizational Dishonesty by Cialdini, Petrova, and Goldstein, and I wanted to share a few thoughts with you and a few things that they shared that I find beneficial. So, I want to ask a question. Is the business world sick? There are all kinds of bad transactions, regulatory evasions, advertising misrepresentations, and much, much more. There are so many different kind of unethical or dishonest practices happening in the business world right now and throughout the history of businesses. So, besides because it's the right thing, why should businesses embrace ethical and honest principles? Is there an economic incentive? I would argue that yes. And today I'd like to go over a few reasons why. The author suggests that there are hidden costs to unethical or dishonest behavior within a business or organization. They call these hidden costs malignancies. That unethical behavior is like what I would call a parasite, or the authors say a tumor, that basically sucks away some of the profitability from these companies. So let's dive in and jump into what they call malignancy number one, which is reputation degradation. So let me read a quote by Edson W. Spencer. He says, "The businessman who straddles the fine line between what is right and what is expedient should remember that it takes years to build a good business reputation. But one false move can destroy that reputation overnight." Okay, I agree with this quote 100%. It takes a long time to build up your reputation as a company to where customers trust you, they want to do business with you. One false move, as soon as unethical behavior within a company leaks, boom, there goes your reputation, and it causes all kinds of costs. And we're going to dive into that in a second. So I want to be clear, the authors also are very clear that they're not talking just about isolated, rare instances of dishonest or unethical behavior within an organization, like maybe an employee does something wrong. They're talking more about a culture of dishonesty, a culture of unethical practices, or maybe societal norms within an organization or company of dishonesty. And that's when you see some really big problems happening. So, Worthland Worldwide did a study where they asked people how their perceptions of a company and how ethical that company was affects their decisions to purchase products or services from a company or to buy stocks from these companies and organizations. And what they found out in this survey is pretty important, I would think. 80% of the people they surveyed said that their decision to buy or purchase products or service from a business or company was indeed affected by their perception of how ethical that company or business is. 74% said that their decision to buy stocks from the same organization or from an organization or company is affected by how ethical they perceive that company to be. So think about it this way. Think about 80% of your current customers. Think about what if 80% of them had not bought from you your product or your service. That is a lot of revenue that you just lost. Or think about your growth rate and think about how 80% of people realizing that you're actually not an ethical or honest company, deciding to buy from your competitors instead. There's a lot of cost there involved, and also 74% of people not buying stocks for your company. So that's a pretty clear economic incentive to participate in ethical and honest practices as a company, as a person, as an organization. Keep that reputation clear. So malignancy number one, reputation degradation. Let's dive into malignancy number two. How else dishonest or unethical behavior can damage the health of a business. So malignancy number two is mismatches or matches between the values of an employee and the values of the organization. So I want to ask a question. Are you a match or are you a mismatch? A match is someone that fits the culture of dishonesty. They are unethical or dishonest employees themselves. If you're a match, here are some of the costs that your company will see. More pilferage, more kickbacks, more inventory shrinkage. Unethical employees support these practices and often participate in them and cause additional costs to the company that they work for. So what about if you are a mismatch? Maybe you don't match that culture of dishonesty. Well, there's also costs here. There's a lot of them. Say you walk into work one day and your boss or your manager asks you to do something that is against your values. You know it's wrong. The culture is a culture of dishonesty, and your culture, your belief system, is one of honesty and of high ethics. Well, there's going to be a lot higher stress levels. So there will be more stress, there will be absenteeism, there will be higher turnover, decreased productivity, increased conflict in the workplace, lower job satisfaction. All of these things lead to higher costs for the company. So whether you're a match to dishonest or unethical culture or a mismatch, there will be costs. So once again, the bottom line is affected. Your revenues will be not necessarily touched here, but your costs will be increased. And therefore, that bottom line will go down. So malignancy number 2, mismatches or matches between values of the employee and the values of the organization. Let's dive into another malignancy, another hidden costs of organizational dishonesty. Malignancy number 3 is increased surveillance. The author shared that over $500 million spent on surveillance software happened between 1990 and 1992. So just 2 years, $500 million. And that was clear back then. Think about now. How much more is being spent on surveillance software or security systems? Since 1992, there have been many instances of unethical behavior or practices among well-known organizations. And that has raised the perceived need for increased surveillance and security systems. And so companies today are spending so much money on these surveillance software and security systems. And that is a pretty tangible cost that they are spending on software because of dishonesty in organizations and businesses. So besides that tangible cost, there are other costs linked to increased surveillance. Health, employee health. There is increased anxiety and depression and stress. Nobody likes to have Big Brother, if you will, looking over your shoulder, checking you, making you feel like you can't be trusted, making you feel that much stress and anxiety over your work because you know it's being micromanaged, every little detail being checked with these security or surveillance systems and software. So there is increased anxiety, stress, and depression. This leads to trust issues, trust between the managers and the employees, which can lead to even more issues that are more costly. When there are trust issues and this anxiety and this depression, this stress, then there is also a decreased sense of freedom within employees. They feel like their control is lacking and they have less control. And many times this kind of spurs employees on to intentionally act out in hostility towards the companies they work for, where they're getting their income. They do it in a way to try to increase their sense of control. This causes a lot of costs to companies when this happens. Another cost and problem with increased surveillance is overestimation. So there are lots of companies, like I said, that have these surveillance systems or the surveillance software in place. And many managers of these companies believe that ethical behavior and good practices among their employees are directly related to the software and the system that they have in place. That might not necessarily be the case. In many cases, these employees would be participating in ethical and honest behavior without the security and surveillance systems. So these companies are spending a lot of money on systems and software they don't necessarily need. So there it is, another cost. So malignancy number 3, increased surveillance. So once again, I found this article incredibly beneficial and incentivizing to be ethical, to stand my moral ground, not only because of morals alone, but because of the economic incentive to be honest. Dishonest companies are suffering from reputation costs, employee satisfaction and value alignment costs, and surveillance costs. It's pretty clear that there is an economic incentive as well as the moral responsibility to behave honestly and ethically. So I just want to encourage all of you guys listening to do that, to behave honestly, to be ethical. Whether you're a manager, whether you're the bottom level employee, everyone can have an impact. And the more people that are behaving honestly, the more that these hidden costs or malignancies go down, and the sickness that business is suffering through will be lessened, and some of that load will be taken off. Once again, be honest, be ethical. Thanks again for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your day, evening, night, whenever it is that you're watching this video.